Hi, welcome to Dear Book Coach. I'm Terry Thayer, certified book coach, certified focusing professional, and author.
I'm Carrie Savage, writer and certified book coach.
And I'm Stephanie Detlefs, writer and certified book coach.
This is a friendly advice space for you as you plan, draft, and revise your novel. In each video, we answer one question submitted by a writer like you from 3 points of view, and you get to pick the advice that works the best for you. Today's question came from Lisa. Does the heroine need to want something in every scene? Carrie, what do you think?
I think I'm glad I get to go first because I think what you're going to find is that we're all basically going to be answering yes to this question. But as with lots of writing maxims and rules, this one has some nuance to it, and I think we're all going to sort of be able to approach it from a slightly different way. So I will start off by saying that first off, I think when the protagonist goes into a scene, it's not necessarily that they always go in there with a conscious want. So like, unless you're standing in line at a cafe, or sorry, they are standing in line in a cafe waiting to order a cup of coffee, like that, would be their tangible want. Usually their want is going to be something more subtle. Perhaps, for example, your protagonist is going into a scene with going in, having a conversation with their mother. Your protagonist's expectation is that their mother will treat them lovingly, but what actually unfolds is very different. The mother might be very cold or indifferent or even mean. And maybe the mother expresses it directly, or maybe she says all the right things, but she says it in this really weird way that throws your protagonist off. Either way, this interaction is going to change something between the two characters, and that change is what's driving your story forward. So if the interaction is not serving to drive your story forward, then that is your clue that it doesn't belong there. It's not carrying its weight. And so you either need to change it or cut it. My guess is that if you go back and look at scenes from your own work that you feel really sing or have been told are really, really working well, or if you revisit scenes from a favorite novel of yours, perhaps, you can identify what the protagonist wants and how, whether they get it or not, is driving the scene. Look for how the events in the scene unfold. Look at how the characters change from the start of the scene to the end. And if you can't identify those things, or if you find that those elements are missing, you're likely identifying a scene that is not working, that's flat, that's boring, that isn't going to carry its own weight. So it can be really helpful, I think, to go back and sort of study scenes, either, like I said, from your own work or from a published work, to really drive at like some of the more subtle things about this question. Because like I said, it's not always that you're going in with this super clear objective that I must get a cup of coffee or a glass of water or whatever it is. I think it's almost always going to be a little more subtle than that, but ultimately, yes. So Stephanie, what do you think?
Yeah, great points, and I agree, Terry. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, yes, the protagonist needs to want something in every scene. That's just the direct answer. So like Carrie was saying, in a story, in the whole big story, the protagonist wants something and also needs something, and those two things may or may not be the same thing. She's also going to have some misbeliefs about both her want and her need, about what they'll give her. And this combination of things is what's driving the entire story. And so every scene needs to lean into that want or need in some way. Sometimes it'll be more direct, sometimes it'll be more subtle. I think of scenes as mini stories. They have a beginning, middle, and end, just like the larger story does. And so because of that, there needs to be some sort of mini want in there too. So that's driving the decisions that the protagonist is making in that scene. So for example, Carrie gave a couple of great examples. Another example might be in an adventure story, the protagonist wants to get to the end of the journey, but in an individual scene, she may have the smaller want of needing to find food. So that overall want or need is ever present, but then there will probably also be smaller wants, more tangible wants, or even intangible, ones that are more emotional. And those are going to drive the scene from beginning to end of that scene. So just another way of thinking about it. Terry, what do you have to add?
Yeah, I go back to Kurt Vonnegut, who is purported to have said that every protagonist needs to want something in every scene, even if it's just a glass of water. And that goes to what both of you are saying, could be small need or want. But your story is about wants. It's otherwise, why are you writing this story? What does your protagonist want? How does she get it? How does she not get it? Perhaps what she wants isn't really what she wants at all. We've all had that feeling after buying something at Costco, generally for me. But, how these wants get your protagonist in trouble, how they complicate her life. They could be hidden desires, things she's not even, like you said, not even conscious of. But it is your protagonist's desire that's pulling us through the story. Her change, her desire to change or weather the storm or live a full life or move to Alaska. We are reading to live within the skin of her desires. So her wants. On a scene level, there's not just a beginning, middle, and an end. There has to be a twist. There has to be a change. Otherwise, there's no reason for that scene to be there, as you both know. So for that to happen, the author has to know what the protagonist wants. She might get it in this scene. She might not. Her wants could, maybe even should, change based on what happens in that scene. So even a glass of water, wanting a glass of water can change the trajectory of a scene. What if she asks for one and she's denied? Or what if it's placed across the room so she has to walk in front of her frenemy or her mother-in-law who thinks she's at church? Or, any number of complications can come up from wanting something and not getting it or getting it. So asking yourself this question, even like keeping Vonnegut's adage in mind before you sit down to write that scene, will help the story stay dynamic. If you keep that little, everybody wants something, whether it's even just a glass of water, in mind, it'll remind you that without wants, there's no story, basically. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I don't know why it just clicked for me when you said it there too. But of course, like, just because you want something doesn't mean you're going to get it, right? So those frustrations and those roadblocks and those obstacles are the things that we like to throw at our protagonists to overcome. And I'm sure that Vonnegut said something about that as well, because he has purportedly something to say about most craft related things. They're all pretty good.
And they're all good. Yeah.
They are all good. So I think with that is it for today. We hope that you found an answer that made sense to you at this point in your life and at this point in your book. Remember that you can submit your question anytime at dearbookcoach.com and subscribe to our weekly email and be eligible to win monthly, to win a call with one of us. We will see you next time.
Bye.